It's the Ringer post-draft show here. I'm Ryen Russillo. You're going to hear this on my feed. We have Bill Simmons, Raja Bell, and Kevin O'Connor. Kevin and I did the pre-draft, and we are just about to finish up the first round, so we'll get to some of the picks as they pop through. I think the first thing is, I actually do want to start with Bill because Tyrell Terry's still available, the propaganda machine for Bill.
Why are you doing it to me?
I have to. And then the fact that they didn't, like, it's Neesmith at 14, I get, but Peyton Pritchard, and there's still another Celtics pick here. They're going to have 31 players on the roster next year if they can't trade any of these guys. So where are you at right now with Terry and Celtics?
Well, first I was watching my dude Halliburton fall and started really getting ideas around pick 10. Then he goes to Sacramento, so he's gone. And then Terry started getting excited around pick 20. And now it's like, the hope's been beaten out of me. The Peyton Pritchard thing, I can't move on. Yeah, KOC should go. KOC, where did he rank in your rankings?
Peyton Pritchard, I had 33, so not super far off from where he got drafted. I'm just shocked.
Silver lining.
I'm just shocked he ended up being the selection there as a 4-year senior from Oregon. I mean, he's a shooter. He plays hard.
Yeah,
but
really hard.
There's better players available, both at 14 and 26. And the Neesmith pick, like, that guy can shoot. But how much can he defend? What is Danny Green with worse defense? That's probably what you're looking at with Aaron Neesmith.
Well, he also had a broken foot, so that part scares me because I don't like broken feet really ever
value.
At any point. What do you think was the biggest surprise of the draft? Because the announcers kind of brushed off the Patrick Williams at number 4. I actually predicted that, but I was kind of throwing it out there because I was just trying to zag. And that one. I don't know. I mean, the rise of Patrick Williams, a guy who didn't start in college, and now he's the 4th pick in the draft. Kind of amazing.
I wasn't surprised. 2.5 weeks ago or so, somebody told me, hey, the draft starts with him at 4. We mentioned it on the pod this week, and then Kevin and I did before. I thought it was either Denny or Williams to Chicago. That's what I had heard prior to it. So when he went for, I think it was shocking a month ago, but I don't think it was by any means shocking tonight. Raja, do you have a guy that you kind of felt like throughout the process you were waiting on, or somebody that you thought was a really good fit, somebody that you'd watch in college now that you go, hey, maybe I didn't love him there, but now this makes a ton of sense?
Not necessarily making more sense now than it did before. I thought what shocked me a little bit was Obi Toppin to the Knicks. Like, I know it's a hometown kid, and I'm not taking anything away from Obi. I think he could be a really good player. I didn't think the fit was great with the Knicks there necessarily, with what they've got in the front court and everything. But, so it's probably the reverse of what you're talking about. Like, I really liked him in college. I just think it was a great fit going to the Knicks necessarily.
I think it's good for him, though, to have Tom Thibodeau there as somebody like a defensive-oriented coach. Like Toppin, like, there's no question with the rim running and the shooting and what he can do off the dribble as a big for you. But the defense, I mean, that's what needs to get better for him to be ever something that's like a high-end player. And having Tibbs, you would hope that's something that could help him along. But then again, you could have said the same thing for Tibbs with Cat. Sometimes it's about the player and the person. I think Obi is a learner, at least. So I hope for him that's a match that can improve his biggest weakness.
Yeah, I think he's better. He's definitely a better fit with Tibbs than Cat. I think his mentality is different, right? Like and to your point, like it's going to be really good for him in the long run to get with Tibbs early, so you develop those habits. I didn't necessarily see the Knicks going there personally, though.
It was funny that he was the guy everybody kept comparing to Amari Stoudemire. And when you think of Amari Stoudemire, you think of like the guy Russia played with. Hopefully he's not the Knicks 2012 version of Amari Stoudemire, like the just not really that effective version. I actually didn't mind that pick. I like the fact that he's a little bit older. I don't think that they could get away with taking like another 19-year-old. Little chip on his shoulder, little excitement. I actually didn't mind it. The one that floored me was Phoenix, when it seemed like it had really lined up for them with Halliburton, where you're getting this guy who could be in top 5 depending on, whose mock draft you're looking at, and somebody that could have learned from Chris Paul, and now Chris Paul, Booker, and then Halliburton kind of easing in. I really liked that as it was happening, and then all of a sudden they went the other direction with somebody that I honestly felt like they could have gotten later.
They're going to lose Aaron Baines, though, in free agency. I've heard New Orleans could be after him, among other teams. So Jalen Smith kind of brings you that stretch shooting big ability. He shoots like a wing. I mean, at Maryland, they ran him off screens and handoffs. It was kind of funny watching a guy that big being used in that type of role. With him, I like it. I mean, it's a little bit of a reach compared to, like you said, a Halliburton who was on the board for them. But Jalen Smith, I think, can come into that rotation. You can play with two bigs with Ayton and Smith because of his shooting ability, or you can play with one big and have him as a backup. I mean, they have like ball handlers on that roster already. And you don't necessarily draft for need, but I think Smith can help now with need, but also be a good long-term piece. I like the pick personally.
I give it a eh.
It's an eh. It was on the high end, though. So Kevin's right about that for Jalen. I mean, some people didn't even like him in the teens, but he's more than just a pick and pop guy. Like, he's surprising. The more you watch him, he shot 27% from three last year. He was 37%, and they would even do stuff where he would hit some turnarounds at times. And you're like, wait, there's way more to this. And I know people really liked him in the interview and everything. So yeah, you're right, because the Halliburton thing, you feel like you can plug him into a different places. I think the biggest story so far would be probably Halliburton falling. Cole Anthony probably going right around where everybody thought he would, because there was a chance he could fall. Felt like
well, wait a
RJ
second.
fell.
The biggest story is LeVar and LaMelo with MJ. That was the one where we were kind of all hoping that would happen, and now this is it. We have LeVar Ball and MJ. They're together finally. This is either going to be a beautiful romance or a disaster, and with no in between.
I want to just see LeVar when he asks Jordan if he can get LiAngelo on the G League team.
Right.
That was a big sticking point with the Lakers, that they wouldn't give his other son a roster spot. He just
Is
like,
that
hey,
true?
You could do it. No, he was like, you could do it if you wanted to. It's like, you could do a lot of things if you wanted to, but I probably don't want to give a roster spot up to your other brother who isn't as good.
Raja, what's your take when LaMelo Ball goes third? Everyone talks about what a great passer he is. And then right near the end of they're breaking it down, Jay Billis goes, look, he's not a good shooter and he doesn't play defense at all. But if he works on those two things, I think it could be a great pick. I'm like, okay, the shooting and defense seems important. I don't know. That's usually been my experience.
Listen, the NBA and its fascination with like potential, it's I understand it, but again, from a guy who like had to hang his hat on defense and being on really good teams and understanding what stopped us from getting over the hump, usually with the nuts and bolts of who you were as a team, and that is the defense and the ability to shoot the ball and things like that. Like, it's always baffling to me that people will take the wild swing. Now, not that he was a wild swing, but it's forgiven a lot in the draft process with this upside and potential, because guys think that they can get that out of you. Like, shooting can be worked on, but defense and mentality, sometimes it is what it is. I think he's going to be a good player, but it's always fascinating to me because I'm a guy, like we talked about this before. Like, give me a guy who's solid defensively, a guy who I know what I'm going to get out of him, and I'll take that. But potential is tantalizing. Guys are always going to take a swing at it.
With those types of potential players who people say they got to work on effort, got to, try harder, whatever it is. Is there a guy that you've ever played with or that you've seen enter the league that had questions about him with effort and turn into a guy that consistently has it on? Because Ryan and I talked about this before the draft. Ben Simmons was one of those guys. Drafted highly, had those questions, and became a great defender. Like, how many examples really are there? There aren't too many of them, are there?
There are not a lot. It's a rare thing, because I think motor, and I deal with a lot of youth basketball. Like, those type of things are usually innate. It's a hard thing to develop as you get older. Boris Diaw is another guy. I think for me, when he came to us from Atlanta, there were some questions about that, about who he was and how hard he played and whether he could be the type of defensive presence and rebounder that you want him to be. He turned into that. Like, Boris was an underrated defender, really gifted with the ball in his hands, could pass it. And those were the things he was known for. But defensively, he became really, really solid. And it wasn't the narrative on him early in his career, but he kind of developed into that. So he's one of those guys that I would say kind of developed it, but it is rare.
The Celtics took Desmond Bane and then traded it. So we're done with the first round. Dallas is on the clock at 31. Dallas is smart. Dallas does the kind of things that I like. They remember me and KOC were driving the Luka bandwagon. They took Luka. The irony is if they take Tyrell Terry here. Is that actually is that on Twitter that they took him?
It's not on Twitter, but I would hope that that's what they go for.
Given the way they approach players and stuff like that, it just seems like this is the kind of guy they would take. And you get to see me flip out on camera. It'll be really fun.
It'd
I'm
be
sorry,
great to
so
see
I
that.
took the driver's wheel from you.
No, I just know. I know how excited you were about that number 30 pick.
Well, if he goes with Luca, he's going to be playing crunch time for them, and you guys have to listen to me say, "I told you so, I told you so," for like 5 years. So you better hope they
No,
don't take him.
but you're right. I mean, it's almost like the Houston thing, where I feel like Houston's the best Instagram filter that you could have as a basketball player. Because all of a sudden you're like, yeah, do you want to give Daniel House 10 million a year? Look at all the shots. You're like, well, all of them. And Daniel House ended up turning into a nice little rotation player before he got a little too thirsty down there in the bowl. But
Thirsty.
you look at any shooter now with Doncic, because there's so many similarities with what they do and how Houston ran the Harden-centric offense, and even better so because they didn't have like an inefficient Westbrook messing it all up. So look, if it ends up being a shooter here, the shooter's probably going to work well with what they do. I want to get back to that effort thing though, because I had a story on Toppin. Because with Thibodeau in New York, and Roger, you're going to love this. When I was asking about Toppin and how bad he was defensively, I was hearing that the Dayton guys were telling scouts, well, he was bored. I would love for Toppin to tell Tips, you know what? Look, I'm ready to play defense. I just was bored for the last couple of years. So let's go get him. Let's get some stops.
Yeah, walk into his office on day one and say that. See how that goes over.
We got news. Dallas is picking Tyrell Terry at number 31.
Fucking kidding me?
Shams just tweeted it out. Yep. They're taking him. Looking forward to saying we told you so, Bill. I'm looking forward to it. Tyrell Terry at number 31. This is perfect.
It's
This is
so
perfect.
funny. Like, of course, Precious was going to go to the Heat. Like, we were joking about, me, KOC, and Verno were joking about that. Like, this is the perfect Heat guy. They're going to take him. He's going to be great on the Heat. And Tyrell Terry in Dallas, it's like, it's perfect. He's going to end up having a huge impact on that team. And everybody's going to go, wow, how did he fall to 31? You know how he fell to 31? Because these teams are fucking morons. That's how they fell to 31. Because every year they stare at these guys for 6 months and they overthink it and they miss basic fucking skills like shooting.
and feel
And he
for
can
the game.
handle, and feel, and they
tough.
trusted him.
Oh, shooting. Oh, it turns out that's important. And Seth Curry bounces around for 4 years, and then all of a sudden he's in the playoffs playing 35 minutes a game because he can shoot, because shooting matters.
And like you think about, you mentioned Seth, as good as Seth was in that situation, Tyrell Terry is somebody who can do more playmaking for you. He can be a better Seth Curry.
Nah, take it easy on Steph.
KOC wrote a 5,000 word feature for us that was basically like Tyrell Terry has a huge chip on his shoulder. Like, Raja, those are your guys. The guys who are like, oh, you're counting me out. Now he falls to 31. It's like, oh, really? I'm not a first rounder. I'm going to shoot 15,000 threes today. I'm going to shoot 20,000 tomorrow. This is the kind of guy he is. It's perfect for him.
Not only it's perfect. There are guys in the draft that go to that like places that are perfect for them. Like you can't see it necessarily on draft night. Like you're probably hoping that you're in that first round and that your name's going to get called and everything is what you had dreamed of. And then, you get picked here, and in like 2 years, you wind up saying to yourself, Jesus Christ, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And going to a place like Dallas for him is going to be a fantastic fit for him as the player.
I think so too. I mean, this is ideal. Luka Doncic, I mean, think about him. Obviously, he's going to handle the ball primarily, but the ideal role for Luka is having a secondary guy that can push him off ball a little bit more, add a little bit more variety in the half court, especially you get deeper in the playoffs. You can't just have one guy do it. You need to have two or three guys, especially in the modern league. And for Dallas to have Tyrell Terry in there, to me, I mean, perfect fit for him, just like you said, Raja, and pretty ideal for what Dallas needs and they're building forward to. I love this. This is a blessing in disguise for him to fall to 31.
Is there any other contender who picked up somebody who could play for crunch time for them in a round 2 or round 3 today?
Precious.
So you think Precious could be like a 7th man on the Heat potentially?
I don't really see why not, especially when we looked at them. As great as their East run was, I feel like the one flaw, if you're a Heat fan and you're thinking, hey, we have a chance to get back to the finals, and I don't think it'd be fair to rule them out. I think the East is going to be a little bit more solid. Of course, that depends on what happens with Brooklyn at the top. If the Sixers look better, if Doc can unlock those guys a little bit, and Toronto will probably just find a way to be competitive. But the West is so big now. Those good teams are bigger. It happened quickly, and when it was just Bam, and they tried Myers Leonard for a stretch. Now it seems weird to play 2 non-shooters now at the same time. And even Precious, it's not like he's this straight 5. Would you put him at 4? Like I can understand sometimes combining those 2 guys where it wouldn't make a ton of sense, but I could also see some rotations where they try to figure out, how to use him, because I just think his energy and his effort, and one of those guys, it's just a pain in the ass to have out on the court. Raja, those guys don't get any of the love, but you just know there's certain people that it's not even getting rebounds, but making rebounds tougher. Robin Lopez is somebody that always comes up whenever we talk about that. And I think that's something that is kind of hard to figure out. You usually don't write down in your scouting notebook, just, difficult to deal with because you're focused on all the other stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't want to say it's rare, but it is sort of rare that you get a guy comes out that is, ball dominant, going to do a lot of the playmaking, going to be the face of the franchise, and you're talking about them playing major minutes in a playoff run the next year, like their rookie year. It's generally a guy like you're talking about, right? Nuts and bolts, like sees a need, fills a need, can go out there and just kind of do some of the fringe things that are going to really be, integral to supporting the stars that you already have in place, right? It can develop into a star, but early like provides a real presence, either defensively or rebounding the ball, or something that just means something to the winning culture that you already have established in the building and can support your stars. And he fits that bill.
Achua feels destined to go to Miami. I mean, it's just a perfect culture fit, perfect system fit. And for him, like the weaknesses he has, like decision making, jumping for pump fakes and some of the stuff like that, it's the type of thing where I think Miami can get a lot of that out of him and iron out those mistakes and iron out those flaws. And then you're going to see a guy who complements Bam at a really exciting level with their defensive versatility with size. It's going to be tough to go against those dudes if you're able to get Precious Achua to be playing like smart fundamental basketball on top of his just insane effort level. That's going to be really fun.
Ryan, can we do guy you felt worst for tonight just for the fit that he was walking into? Because for me, it's OKORO. I really liked him. And he goes to this Cleveland team now that's just like the island of misfit toys, right? They have two point guards who weren't point guards. They have the twin towers of Drummond and Love during an era where nobody wants to play two bigs at the same time. Nobody can play defense at all in the entire team. And then he goes in and it's like, hey, cool. So these two guards are going to have the ball a lot. And you're going to be the only guy who can guard anyone on our team. So every night you're going to have to guard the other team's best guy. And, and by the way, if you ever want to drive to the basket, there's just going to be two guys blocking the paint on your team the entire time. So good luck. Have fun. I felt the worst for him.
Yeah, it's tough to top that one. Because
and you're in Cleveland. I left out that part.
The
living in Cleveland, Ohio.
Right. The Cleveland part of it is just so many of these rosters. I don't know. I mean, look, I'll admit I had a Trae Young joke when he tweeted at Okongwu being like, I hope you're ready for some alley-oops. It's like, I hope you're ready to watch a lot of dribbling.
I hope you're ready to be waved out of the paint so I can cook.
Right. Like, I'm going to have the best season tickets in the league. So, but I held back. I wouldn't do that anyway.
Good.
I would just share it with you guys on a stream.
Well, Trae Young's dad has come at you. You don't want to feud with Trae Young's
dad. Yeah, but
dad.
See, Trae Young's dad didn't understand the point that I was making. It's Perk's fault. Kendrick Perkins, who hates Steph, was shitting on Steph by saying, look at what Steph was his first 2 years in the league and look at what Trae Young has done. And I'm like, okay, because that's the same comparison. Mark Jackson had Steph sitting in the corner. And
Monte Ellis was
right. And if you had decided to let Steph just have the ball every possession and just pull up from 30 and do whatever he wanted for 40 minutes a night, Steph would have put up big numbers. But then it turned into, why are you dumping on Trae for wanting to be like Steph? I'm like, that's not what I did. So anyway, we'll work it out one day with Ray, because I have it's not personal.
Okay. I liked Okongwu though. I hope Trae passes to him a couple times. I thought he was. I was hoping the Celtics were going to trade up and get him, to be honest.
How many guys did you
give
have?
Him Rimrunner would be nice for him.
Did you have 15 guys you hoped the Celtics were going to take at one point tonight? You've got a lot of guys.
Okongwu was the guy that I thought we could have traded up and he could actually play for us. Then Halliburton started falling and I lost my mind because I thought he was going to go to Detroit. I didn't think he was going to fall out of the top 8. So, we should have known that this draft was going to get a little goofy, but it definitely did.
Took a while to get goofy, though. It felt pretty straight up top. I mean,
yeah,
besides
then
Patrick Williams,
haywire.
No doubt about it. Middle of the first round, starting really with, I think, Aaron Nesmith, then Cole Anthony, then Isaiah Stewart. That's when things started to get weird.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a Nesmith question, actually, Kevin?
Yeah.
Because everybody talks about that he doesn't have a handle. or there's not enough of a handle. First of all, as a shooter, there's different shooters, and Raja, you jump in here too whenever. Like there are guys that can hit the shot from the spot that they're comfortable from, and then there's guys that are comfortable from multiple spots. And the second group is smaller. I think Neesmith actually is comfortable from all sorts of different places. And I actually found Vandy would run stuff and they'd run it, and then it would just Neesmith would have to come back and take it from Scottie Pippen Jr. and then start all over again. And he would have to handle and create. And I honestly feel like in a lot of the evaluations, he didn't get enough credit. It wasn't like he was just zinging all over the place, catching it. He would have to bail them out of a lot of possessions too. And the fact that he shot it the way he shot it, I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I think he's a really talented offensive player. No doubt about it from the perimeter. I'm not so sure that you're going to get like the ability to drive to the rim or draw fouls or make plays off the dribble, but he can at least be one of, it's like we talked about earlier, Ryan. There's guys who you don't want taking 3 dribbles. With him, you can get 1 or 2 really good dribbles and maybe a third sometimes. He's not a creator, but he can create for himself a little bit on the perimeter playing off of others. For him, it's really about like what level does he reach defensively? He was an average college defender. And for the guy with his size and his length, you would hope that he can grow into becoming something more.
But, I mean, wingspan is it. What was your wingspan, Raja? Or what is it now? Does the wingspan decline?
Wingspan doesn't. Height does. Wingspan, I think, stays the same. I was about 6'8".
And how tall are you?
6'5".
Yeah, so that's like the perfect. You're the prototype.
Yeah. So you want to be like. I actually think, on a team like the Celtics, when you got creators to some degree in Jaylen Brown and Tatum and Kemba, yeah, you can have. A guy that doesn't necessarily, he's not a pure creator, but can really shoot the ball and knock it down from, to your point, a variety of different spots. It's not just a one spot kind of guy. And I think culturally, like they really do, Brad Stevens hangs his hat on defense. So another guy who, if you go in there, you've got the frame, you've got kind of the tools to work with it. If you buy in culturally with a good group of vets, you can be productive there because space is critical to those other guys we just mentioned in their ability to play create. So if you can sit out there and knock down jump shots and then be serviceable defensively as a rookie, there could be real minutes there.
It's kind of like, today, just now, Josh Richardson was traded by the Sixers to the Mavericks at the 36th pick with Richardson for Seth Curry. And Richardson's kind of one of those guys that you're talking about. Did that just happen? That just happened now, according to Shams and Woj and, and all the reporters. But
so Tyrell Terry moves into the Seth Curry spot.
Into the Seth Curry spot, right into it.
Man.
But, but Richardson is one of those types of guys that we're sort of talking about here, right? I mean, like, I think you would want Neesmith to grow into that type of role and hopefully get better on defense. Maybe not a guy who's handling a lot for you, but can here and there. That would be the long-term goal for him, but I'm not so sure that the ball handling ability is there. But if it is, it's never going to be at a high level. He's always going to be a shooter for you. And if he can shoot a heck of a lot better than Richardson while being good on defense, that'd be a really nice player. But there's a lot of questions though.
I didn't mind that pick. I actually think he's a really good character guy along the lines of Jaylen Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Like there is like something, I think Halliburton's like that too. I think there are a couple guys in this draft who had a whiff of like the Jaylen Brown. This guy off the court could also have a real impact on a franchise. I just thought once Halliburton got to 10 for when they needed another impact guy, I think Halliburton's going to come back to haunt 5 or 6 of those teams, and I love going on the record after these drafts. I think Halliburton is going to be the guy from this draft that we're going to look back and go, what the fuck? How did that guy go 12? There's a guy like that every year. And I think he's going to be the guy this year. And I didn't mind some of the picks, but I thought that was stupid. And I know KOC loves Killian Hayes, but to me, Halliburton versus Killian Hayes, I just like Halliburton more. I think he's a safer pick.
Halliburton's more ready to play.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you that for sure. I think with Killian Hayes, he still needs to get better, needs to get just more matured in the court and needs to improve his jumper. With Halliburton, that's a nice fit with De'Aaron Fox. You have speed, you have feel, it's a contrasting styles, and those guys can complement each other quite well. With De'Aaron Fox, I'm excited.
Good stable franchise.
I mean,
you don't hear a lot of guys say, I love Sacramento's great for me. That's what we heard.
Can't wait to settle down here.
There were a few highlights in the broadcast. My favorite so far is RJ Hampton's father yelling fuck and then taking the Milwaukee Bucks hat and chucking it behind the couch. And then I don't think they realized that they were also not going to New Orleans. And then I think it's a good spot for RJ Hampton, even though it went later than he thought he would go. Raja, do you know immediately when a rookie comes in? Like, how many times have you give me a story about being right, and if there are times where you were wrong? Because all of you guys are wired
Good
the
question.
same way. I feel like where you'll know so soon. You're like, this pick is gonna suck, and name names.
All right.
He's like Earl Clark. No,
Yeah,
no.
no.
Sorry.
They both happen to kind of be in Utah. Gordon Hayward, when they picked when the Jazz picked Gordon,
I just didn't like him. You didn't see it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'd watched him. I didn't know he was going to be as good as he was, but I knew he was going to be a really, really solid, good pro. From when they picked him, from watching him at Butler, and then from like the first days of training camp, when you run up on a guy, he's young, he's wet behind the ears, and you try him real quick with like a quick forearm shiver to the chops.
Oh, you tried to bully him.
Oh yeah. Like, listen, we're fighting for a spot. But no, Gordon didn't back down. He wasn't an obnoxious rook, but he was certainly letting you know that he was not intimidated by the situation. So you knew Gordon was going to be good. And then on the flip side of that, same franchise, they drafted Kirk Snyder the first time I was there, and it was a pretty high pick. And I just didn't, I didn't love that. I didn't know a lot about him in college, but from what I had understood, I had my concerns, and that one didn't work out for the Jazz.
That was diplomatic, Raja.
I appreciate it.
I like how Raja
way.
treats training camp like it's season 2 of Oz. Like there's a new character in the prison. We got to test this guy right away.
Yeah, and listen, I was a terrible teammate in that regard, coming out of the shoot, because I was trying to win. Like, I was trying to prove that it was still my spot. But but Gordon wound up being. Look, you always have respect for a guy like that, a rook that comes in like. He's not obnoxious. He's cool with being a rook. He's not going to let you push him over. So he knows that like he belongs there. But there's still some humility. And so like, I love Gordon. Gordon was one of my favorite rooks, but you try him to see what's up. Like, you need to know who you're in the foxhole with.
Can we talk about how we had so many months to stare at this draft? And I know KOC just stared at it like for hundreds of hours. Almost too much time.
Yeah, too
in
much.
a way, it was like, hey, this is actually cool. I have a real feel for this draft. But as we headed into the last week, so I don't know, Edwards might drop, LaMelo might drop. Oh, Wiseman could go to 1. Who's it? And basically the whole time, what we thought the 1, 2, 3 was ended up being the 1, 2, 3. So now I'm thinking like we should just keep it the way it was with the draft, just like have it right after the finals. So be it like nothing really changed in the mocks for 4 months ago, right, KOC?
Not really. I mean, what's funny is just this past week with all these potential trades up top, you hear about 2 and 4 flipping or 3 and 1, and then none of it happens. Just nothing.
Yeah, I got to tell you this. There's a moment where I go, holy shit, am I bored? This is your favorite thing in the world. And there was a little stretch where I went.
Well, let's do it. Go. It's time. Do it. Let's do the thing.
With the COVID restrictions, you knew the broadcast was going to be challenging, and they really leaned in on the Malika Andrews pieces where she was doing a lot of the family stuff, which everybody really seems to like. But I don't know how we've gotten so far away from draft night where everybody in studio, like, those should be discussions. Hey, this is what I like about this pick. This is what I don't like about this pick. There's a better guy on the board. Hey, you think he could shoot? Hey, I don't think he's good enough of a shooter. I think that's what basketball fans want. If you're going to sit here and watch this thing for 4 hours, I know that's what I want. Maybe I'm the wrong audience, but there's been this GMAing of all of these broadcasts now that I don't understand how that happened. And I mean, when you go back,
we
to
have
the
a
NFL
network for it, though. We have a network for it. It's called ABC.
Yeah, and that's
put that telecast on there. Let me watch the telecast that tells me what trades just happened.
Do you remember the NFL draft? It was like, hey, all right, talk about your coach. And did anyone die? No.
Right.
A dog? Did you have a dog that was maybe dropped off at a farm? No.
Right.
Okay. All right. Next. I mean, every single story was, especially on the NFL broadcast, was like, how can we make this thing a tearjerker? And we're doing this on a ton of shows now, and it's not even just ESPN. Like, I don't quite get it.
It's the sapization of ESPN. I'll tell you what happened.
I want guys arguing in studio saying, I can't believe you like this pick. That's what everybody else is doing. And now we're so far removed from that. I don't quite understand it.
I was in my back house, but I had the TV on in our living room, and my wife came out. Stop. A little bit where I'm right now.
You said a back house, bro? You said
That's a little pool house. That's
my house
setup.
number 2.
Stop. So my wife comes out, and I guess the draft had been on, and she was making dinner, and she's like, I just cried 3 picks in a row, like dead serious.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, that's why they do
You're
this.
like, I did too, because
Yeah,
the
I
Celtics
cried.
took Neesmith instead.
I was like, I cried too because this draft telecast is so bad. There were no arguments. Every pick was the greatest pick ever. There was no, like, Halliburton starts falling. They're not going crazy about it. Trades are Woj is 6 minutes ahead of each pick on Twitter. And I don't understand it. Why would you have a telecast that doesn't reflect the basketball fans' experience of digesting the draft? It was like this separate, and I've done the draft. I did 2 years in a row, and I felt like back then, at least we would argue about the picks and be like, wow, that was weird. Why'd they do that? That part's just gone. They don't question any
It's
team
not even
now.
a part of it. Like, I wonder how that even works. Like, do you guys want, like, just like we're sitting here now, and if I think you're ridiculous on a pick, I'm just going to tell you. And
Right.
it doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean you're wrong or any of that kind of stuff. But I feel like every fan base, and granted, we can talk about the challenges of now, but it isn't just this year. It's moving further away from what I think everyone that's at home is doing. The people that are still watching the second round right now are lifers, are hardcore.
Yeah.
All right. And there were just moments where I go, wait, that's a trade, right? That's a trade. And I don't know. It just
Before the Charlotte pick, they didn't even talk about it. They just went right from, the long James Wiseman section interview, more James, hey, let's talk to his uncle. And then all of a sudden it's like Charlotte's on the clock. Oh, they took LaMelo Ball. It was, I don't know, kind of I wanted like 2 minutes of something. I don't know. Roger, where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think a lot of shit is just different. People are trying to figure their way around it, but I'm with you in that, you can't, everything in this draft wasn't great. And so if it wasn't great, like we came on here early and, I talked about Obi Toppin, 2 of you both said you liked the pick, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Like there's no offense taken.
We disagreed.
It's your opinion. Yeah. It's what it is. So there should be more of that when you've got, 4 guys in the studio breaking down a draft like this. I agree. It can't all be the same shit, as I just agreed with you guys doing exactly what they
should have told us. You should have told us you love it and you like those. Because I think we end up coming off like, I know I'm, to be like, oh, right. You don't like, I think people do like the family touching stories, but I know that there's a lot of basketball fans that are so into this, and we had to wait a few extra months. And I just think there's so many cool basketball things. Like I want to talk Kyra Lewis on the Pelicans.
I think that's why you mentioned the idea of having like this on ABC, right? Like the family stories on an ABC style channel, and then analysis on another. Like, I think it would be great to have ESPN having one broadcast, ESPN 2 having another, because on one of them, you could have Adam Silver go up there, 6 minutes after the whole world knows where they're getting picked. On the other one, you could go to Woj, have him on camera, announce the pick, and then go to a round table of people debating the pick, wondering where the hell is Halliburton going? Why is this happening? Why are teams letting him fall?
And then why would the Kings take him when they have a point guard? Like, at least let's have that conversation. Wait a second, how's that going to work?
You're right. That part is like never even brought up. Like, do you go, wait a minute, can he play off of De'Aaron Fox? Well, actually, he could play off because his freshman year, he had other guards there that were scorers. All right, boom, 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 and all these different things. And you have the most powerful guy covering any sport in Woj. And you're like, I want to hear what Woj is saying more about the climate of some of the stuff that's happening, or maybe just on the phone so much that it's hard. But I feel like I want more Woj. And
you know what they did add that I kind of enjoyed was the Bobby Marks, who runs I like Bobby Marks. He's a good guy, but he runs interview stuff for like 45 of the guys, helps them learn how to get interviewed by teams. So they go to him on Halliburton, and I saw him 2 days ago too, where he's like, it's almost like he's like Tom Cruise talking about Scientology or something. He's like, Tyrese Halliburton is the best human being I've met in my 48 years on earth. I watched him. There was a dying dog in the street, and he touched it with his pinky, and the dog got up and ran away. Like, it was like that kind of energy. And you were like, all right, I'm sure he's a good guy, but is this guy Gandhi? Are we going to be making a 3.5-hour movie about him someday? What's going on here? But it's a lot of that. It's a lot of like selling how great each guy is versus like, can we just talk about the basketball fit? Does this guy make sense on this team? Like, I thought that was the whole point of the draft.
Yeah, maybe it's because it's kids, and maybe it's because people just don't want to get up there and be like, "Oh, this guy sucks. What a reach!"
Raja Bell, out of the 58 people I've worked with at the Ringer, I have never met anybody who on a Zoom could be more understanding I don't get it. I just don't
It's
understand.
like, where the hell is this going?
Yeah, I just don't understand the complimentary hyperbole. It's like this whole thing with the draft now. I don't get
I
it.
was like, what the fuck? What? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, especially too, like in a draft that we all think may kind of suck. Do we want to do a round 2 update quick though? Only because
Oh no.
this is just an interesting one. Vernon Carey at Duke, 6'10", 270. He was, I think, he was the number 5 player in Rivals, 5-star, number 5 player. If you go Rivals, it was Wiseman. It was Isaiah Stewart, the big kid, obviously out of Washington, where lottery picks go to die. And then Anthony Edwards, who went 1. Cole Anthony was 4. Vernon Carey was 5. He goes into Duke. Kevin, I don't know. Did you have him at some point? I imagine pretty high in like a mock a year out because he's
Probably
this
a
high
year
recruit.
ago.
Yeah, right. And I asked because I was like, hey, what's up with Cassius? What's up with all these Duke guys? And they're complete afterthoughts. And when you watch Vernon, his size stood out, but there really wasn't. But and whenever you talk to, like, I couldn't find one guy that's like, hey, man, people are sleeping on him. It was just a bad year at Duke. He probably went higher than people thought going 32. So there you go. That's my second round guy for you.
I have a Raja Duke thing. I think Raja, like about 5 years ago, just could have started pretending he went to Duke, and it would have been far enough ago that nobody would have even known. But you would have been a great Duke guy. I could have totally have seen you in there.
I always thought I would have been a great Duke, and I'm friends with a lot of Duke dudes, so I know like, I would be good in a Duke uniform. Unfortunately,
you could have talked about
like,
how much Coach K meant to you.
0 ACC schools, so it just wasn't in the cards.
It should have happened. We got to have a do-over on that.
You don't flop enough, though. Raja doesn't flop enough.
True. That's a good point.
Listen, I'm because you brought up Vern. Like I'm friends with his dad.
Talk him up. Let's go.
I've watched him play in high school. Like he's right around the corner from me. So I've watched him since he was like in the 10th grade. I'm asking you guys because like what was it? Was it just like not that type of big, like the size, the maybe lack of athleticism? Like what was it that they saw, in the year that just caused him to slip like that? I'm
just a throwback.
Yeah.
I mean, people question how much of a modern skill set does he have for on the defensive end of the floor, for just everything really. In terms of decision making for you. I mean, he sort of reminds me a little bit of like Jared Sullinger. Maybe
Sullinger had more perimeter than Carey did.
I agree.
So I talk about him a little. Like I talk about him a lot. And I feel like the skill set isn't. I feel like Duke was a bad choice for him. Like it sounds crazy, but I feel like if you go somewhere where they let you not play on the block, because Coach K is going to mold his team around whatever he's got, the best way for him to win games. He does it every year. Runs a different offense. Like sometimes they're just in floppy, right? And then other years they're kind of spaced out, and he's going to let a guard go to work. I feel like it was a bad fit for Vern. I'm not saying he's going to be a great pro, but I think if you showed, like you go to Kentucky where they let you do some other things, like maybe there's a different narrative around it.
That's what I used to love about the UConn guys, because Calhoun would just load up on him and be like, get out there and run and bust your ass on defense. You do whatever you want. And it was different. It was more freedom. Here's a Zag as he ducks. I don't know that I love what they were doing on offense at Duke the last couple of years, okay? And the fact that Zion, they would have these moments where basically it was just up to Zion to bail everybody out, and RJ and Cam Reddish are still on the team. And some of that I think is more on Cam and RJ regressing a bit. But that team was ridiculous. That's 3 lottery picks. And I know the tournament's one and done and all that kind of stuff. But then when I'd watch all these guys come in, and like what world would 3 Duke players come in that are projected as maybe 2 lotteries and another first rounder, and none of them go in the first round?
Speaking about bigs, one guy I don't believe we've discussed yet is James Wiseman going to the Warriors with the second pick. And then what a big day for the Warriors. Chris Haynes said maybe an Achilles injury. I mean, that's awful if that turns out to be the case, but James Wiseman going to them, second pick in the draft. That's a perfect pick for them. Perfect fit for Wiseman to get better at his weaknesses. He can play right away, be a rim runner for them. Ryan, I know he's your top guy in the draft. Do you feel like this is the guy? Yeah, perfect situation for him, right?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I believe I need to do more digging on this, and maybe I'll have it for Friday's pod. But I think there was a lot of changing of the minds back and forth. Like, hey, if Edwards is there, if Melo is there, if Wiseman is there, and that's why I was getting a little coy with Bill earlier in the week.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I know you did, but I didn't feel comfortable talking about it. So I'm just saying that I wonder how much we'll learn about, you never know with teams after the fact, because teams are very protective of like when something doesn't work out, they'll say, well, that's because of this, this, and this. You're like, all right, well, maybe that's true, but I'm not quite sure. But I just love the Wiseman pick. But it would just been weird if Edwards had fallen, would people have said, oh, well, they didn't take Wiseman, or they took the guard, or they took Melo because Clay had gotten hurt earlier that day. I don't really think that's team's too smart. That's not how they would run their board. But I love, hopefully, if Clay's healthy, and even without, you still have Steph. I don't know what's going to happen with Wiggins. Maybe he's asked to do more here, obviously, if Clay's injury is really bad. But it just makes a lot of sense because they've been kind of piecemealing it there at center for a while. And look, I just like him.
No,
I like what his
he's
floor
perfect.
is. I like what his floor is, and I get really excited about what his ceiling could be.
The thing is, I was thinking the Clay thing, and I hope he's okay. And I really miss watching Clay, so I really hope it's a blip. But I was so excited to watch that team with Wiseman, and they haven't really ever had a guy like that in the mix with the shooters they have and just how smart, Yeah, it's always been like these flawed dudes. But I was thinking, like, when I saw the Clay news, I do believe in basketball karma sometimes, where you can have such a good run for so long that it just can't last. It's like a seesaw. It's got a seesaw the other way. And you think like the Warriors, they had such like a blessed run there for so many years.
With the
Durant
goes down and costs them a title.
No, I'm saying I'm going back. I'm going back to 2009. I'm saying like Curry falling to them, the Klay Thompson pick. The fact that the Draymond goes to 36, the cap spike gets him Durant, the Harrison Barnes game where they're trying to tank it and it goes into overtime and they finally pull it out and they wouldn't have even had that Harrison Barnes pick. And then Durant coming and all that, like they had this great run. And then it's like from the moment KD went down, it's been one thing after another. And it's like that seesaw thing. I don't know. Raj, am I overthinking that?
A little bit, but I'm with you. I mean,
I was hoping he wasn't going to agree, by the way.
A little bit. I do believe in basketball guys too, though. I just, my takeaway from that is like, not your point, but like the injury itself. If that's an Achilles injury, I don't think you ever see the guy that was in the prime of his career again. Like you don't come back from an Achilles usually and look the same. You're certainly not coming off of an ACL, not having played, and now you've got an Achilles and come back and look like you
both
did before.
legs.
That's just terrible. It's awful. I just hope it's not true, because that would be the end of Clay as you knew him.
And by the way, did we get the ruling on it's the opposite leg of the ACL, correct?
Yeah.
So, Raja, that probably tells you something where, however he was training, and we know Clay's an absolute gym rat. Like he's the kind of guy that like 3 days after surgery, when they say don't do anything for 6 weeks, he's probably trying to get some shots up. Yeah. I wonder if the rehab is the reason why you end up blowing out the Achilles.
You're overcompensating probably. Like, I mean, I haven't seen any Clay's workouts, but typically, when you come back and you're really trying to, get back after it, it's a kinetic chain, right? Like everything's trying to make up for a deficiency on the other side. And before you know it, you've injured something else, which is a shame.
I mean, we don't know exactly how he injured it, but he was playing like full court games in LA with a whole bunch of guys that were coming through that gym. So, I mean, I'm guessing it probably happened during a game.
That's tough.
The other thing that happened today that just got lost because it got tweeted out right before the draft, but it had been something that I think we had all been hearing all day, is that the Bogdanovich sign and trade isn't actually happening, where they made the trade, it's going, but then they forgot the part that he's a restricted free agent and he actually has to sign the deal and agree to it.
They didn't forget the part. Other teams couldn't believe, and I didn't really know like what, but it was the number, it was the cap gurus were like, this actually can't happen in this order. And then I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not, take it up with the commissioner. So you're right. Like,
but I think they thought, the way I perceived it was he's restricted, but they've talked to him. He's going to sign and then they'll trade him to Milwaukee. But that's apparently not what happened. And it doesn't look like he's going to Milwaukee. So this 2 days that we spent where we were like, oh my God, Drew Holiday and Bogdanovich, and now Giannis will stay. And now he's with Dante DiVincenzo.
What if Giannis goes, hey, I thought we were going to Bogdanovich. I'm out of here. Sorry about all those picks.
Yeah. That's not a joke.
I really? You think you would do that? It sounds like you want that to happen.
Does anything surprise you? James Harden's like, I'm out. He's just like overnight, like I'm gone.
What do you want to have happen more, that or Kyrie end up on the Heat?
I don't think Bogdanovich is going to Milwaukee. I'm telling you that much.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know that it also means Giannis bails. It would just be really nasty if that were to happen. I have nothing else to add to this. I know how excited. What were you looking for? Kyrie getting traded where?
There was a rumor, not true, or if it was true, it maybe lasted a second, but that they were trying to figure out a 3-way deal and it had Kyrie ending up in Miami, which I just refuse to believe. But the thought of them trading Kyrie was just, we talked about it a little yesterday on my podcast with Raja. I just thought that was hilarious. Durant and Kyrie would have never played together and they trade Kyrie. Like, what are the odds of that? So I don't think that will happen. I think Harden's going to end up going to Philly. If I had to make a bet, I would bet on Westbrook and Harden getting traded within the next few days.
Westbrook where?
I think Westbrook is going to get traded pretty soon.
To where though?
To an Eastern Conference team. That's my guess.
So you think Kemba and some first do it?
No, it won't be the Celtics. I will say this. I didn't fully believe it until the Horford trade today. That's kind of secretly saved Philly a lot of money. And if you think about like
stuff there,
how much you have to add, whatever that Harden trade is, and I think we all agree the Harden, Ben Simmons, whatever that looks like, is the most logical trade. If Houston's going to trade Harden, they have to get somebody like Ben Simmons back, or it's not worth it. So
I reported earlier in the week that people around the league were just saying Tillman Fertitta is not going to trade James Harden to Daryl Morey, but it is noteworthy, and I know this is silly, but his son on Twitter has been liking tweets saying, "My dad's a businessman. This is part of negotiations. He's going to take the best offer available. He's a businessman." All this stuff about that, this and that. So that would be part of it. Like, you might try to get more from Daryl because he's Daryl, but that's part of it, trying to get everything you can. Because that Nets offer, man, like that's something
there's no way.
That's something you take next offseason when there's nothing else available. Right now,
that's what I've never understood about this. That so many people that keep writing, well, you can't bring him back. I can bring him back if it's for Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert. And look, I kind of like Karis LeVert. Dinwiddie's turned into a nice story, but give me a break. I'm not doing it. Not with 2 years plus a player option. Did you? Do you have any good Westbrook stories, Raja?
Oh.
No.
Not trying you as much as he tries other guys.
He never tried me. I respected Russ because of the way he competed, right? Like, so it's kind of like a fraternal thing. Like, there were some guys, and I won't say any names, that when you go out to the jump ball, they're trying to make nice with you. Like, hey man, like, how's it going? Like, there were even guys in the NBA that would tell you, hey man, this play's not for me. It's not for me. Just chill. We're going through it. This play's not for me.
Serious?
Right? Oh, facts. But like, Russ wasn't wired like that, and I always had respect.
I love that part of Russ. I criticize him all the time, but that part I love.
That's just about the only experience I have with him is just straight up competition. But I always respected him for the way he got.
Yeah, see, I bet he respected Raja more than he would respect, like, I don't know, Peyton Pritchard.
Russ is Nick Cage. We just want to see him in the straight to VOD movies where like somebody died and he's got to find them, and he's not winning an Oscar. You spend 2 hours with Russ. You're going to have a good time, and the movie's going to cost $4.99. That's Russell Westbrook. I think the mistake has been this guy is an Oscar winner. This guy, no, he could be elite. No, that's who he is. He's Nick Cage. I want him to go to an Eastern Conference team and take 30 shots a game and have the occasional like 42, 15, and 17, and let's go. He'll make one of those 7 shitty Eastern teams much more exciting just by being on the team.
All right, so we've whittled it down to 1/4 of the league. It's a shitty Eastern team. Bill has this look on his face like he is just bursting.
Well, like you with LaMelo Ball a couple days ago?
Pretty much. It's the same thing. I don't know. This can't even get aggregated, though. You've done a good job of hiding it. What else do we
I didn't say anything.
I know. You did a terrific job. Nick Richards, Kentucky, off the board.
So,
just in case anybody was wondering.
Most disappointing team that didn't do anything was Indiana. I was waiting for like all this Indiana mover. They're going to be in the middle of stuff. Oladipo, Turner, who knows? And nothing from them. I do think they were kicking tires on some trades, but I just don't think anything happened to them. But the Oladipo thing, Roger, would you take a flyer on Oladipo for a year at $20 million?
Yep.
You would.
Yeah. Yeah, I like
I
him
would
with the-
too.
Yeah.
You giving up though? It's got to be a buy low.
I think that's what it is.
How low?
But
Is it worth it for
I
Indiana?
I don't know what value is anymore when Landry Shamit's worth the 19th pick.
You're way too hard on Landry Shamet.
Shamit face.
Yeah. Shamet face is in your head. He was terrific as a rookie. He was closing.
Terrific's a little strong.
His 3-point shooting
It was fine.
He's really good with the Clippers too. Really came along in the
That's my
defensive end of
point.
the court.
Yeah. I think Bill, I don't know what the hell Landry Shamet did to you, but
He's fine.
I think the real question is, would you rather have Landry Shamet or Luke Kennard? They kind of had
like
that choice
Luke
there
Kennard.
between the two.
Landry Shamet.
You like Landry
Raj
Shamet?
doesn't even want to hear it.
Landry Shamet, sir. Yes. I'm
Why?
with KOC and Ryan.
How come, Raja? I'm curious.
Because he's Team Brooklyn now.
No, I think look, I liked him when he was in Philly. I liked him when he was in Wichita. But like I think he can really shoot the ball. I think he has like the spirit that you would want. Like there are a lot of people that shoot the ball, but I think he's got a moxie about him and a toughness about him that is good on winning teams that you need. Like there's a nuts and bolts kind of feel to him for good teams.
If
I
you
liked
wanna
him
say-
more until the bubble, but now he might have been COVID stuff when he was just to show himself. I don't know, but I thought he was bad in the bubble.
Fair.
Couple guys are still available. Nico Mannion's going to end up in Italy a lot quicker than we thought. He's still available. Cassius Winston, Michigan State. My guy Isaiah Joe still on the board.
Isaiah Joe still on the board.
Some medicals people worried about. KILLIAN Tillie. Speaking of medicals,
Oh yeah.
he is he's good. He's actually good. I mean, he's 6'10". He can shoot the hell out of the ball. He can actually move off the shot. But what is it? It was a knee surgery, a fracture in the foot. There was an ankle thing, and then it was just like all of these injuries. Never could stay healthy. But if he wasn't, again, if a senior who didn't have a million injuries, he's from France. So I don't know all the different factors that go against him. I'm not even trying to be anti-French right now. I know that sounded weird, but
What about your guy Isaiah Joe?
Isaiah Joe's still available. So I checked on that. Isaiah Joe, if you remember his timeline, for those who don't remember, 6'5",
Great
Arkansas, shoot the hell out of the ball, wasn't a highly recruited guy, small school in Arkansas. Actually, I don't know the size of the high school, but he didn't have a ton of interest. I think Alabama was the only other big team that wanted him. And he had a promise from Philly before Darryl took over. And so before Darryl even got there, they brought him in. They didn't like something in his medical. He missed some time. The team, again, everybody always has different medical opinions on all sorts of stuff, as we're learning now. But that apparently it wasn't that bad. But then once he had some procedure, then Philly was like, we're out. And then it's a whole new team there. So I'm just telling you, there were way too many guys that I watched in this draft class that I don't think are going to score in the NBA. And I think if Isaiah Joe is healthy, he can score in the league.
I'm with you there, Ryan. And to me, I mean, medical aside, there's no doubt about this guy's ability to be an NBA player for you. His ability to shoot off screens. It's sort of like we talked about earlier with the ability to not just spot up and shoot. He can come off of movement and drain threes for you. I mean, to me, if he's able to stay healthy, whatever the medical is, he's going to end up one of the second round steals that we have here. And there's a couple here. I mean, I think Xavier Tillman, another guy who had some medical issues going to Memphis, Robert Woodard, a wing that I had ranked, I believe, 20th or 21st.
How about Tyshawn Alexander, the Creighton kid?
I like him too.
Look, again, who are we talking about here? Most of these guys are never even going to have any kind of career, but he is on a good college team, and he was so full of himself in the best way possible as a basketball player. Like he thinks he's the shit every single minute he was out there. And I know you had him higher than this, and I agree with you. And I mean, ESPN has him now as best available. He's the 20th best available player as we're halfway through the second round. So
I have a question for Raja. Because Raja, will you be a GM at some point? I don't know what year. What year? What's the over-under for you? 2027? At some point, you'll be a GM. Or
I gotta get all these kids out the house, brother.
yeah, once you put some kids in boarding school and college, what is the point of promising people that you're going to draft them? I don't get that. I think so much can happen. Like, let's say, for instance, Sacramento had promised the 7-foot, 180-pound kid that OKC took, that KOC likes, who's going to be a bust. Let's say they had taken
shots fired.
Let's say they promised that dude at 12, we're going to take you, but then Halliburton drops. And now he's sitting there at 12, and you're like, we promised the 180-pound kid, we're going to get him some meat meals and try to put him on some shakes, get him up to 198. Or we could just take Halliburton, who's going to be awesome. I would be like, fuck that. Our promise is broken. What is the point of doing promises?
Yeah, listen, I haven't been in a situation where there was a promise made. So like, I don't understand why you would promise someone and like pigeonhole yourself with that either. My take on a promise is that, you know, it's not really a promise. Like my situation coming out of the draft, Atlanta, they didn't promise me, but they was like, we'll take you with that last pick in the draft if it's around. So what that did for me was like, you know, maybe I don't need to go to every workout now, right? Like I have something in hand, so to speak. So you could, in theory, kind of stop a guy from being exposed to
So you
everybody
can
else.
pick your spots a little bit almost, or
Well, if you
mail
were-
it in on certain teams that you don't really want to play for.
Yeah, I mean, look, from my perspective, like, so it happened to me with San Antonio also, right? Like they tried to stash me in a summer league because they didn't want me going out there, and they wanted to sign me to a 1-year deal. And, you know, I was happy to be locked into San Antonio, so I just sat the rest of summer league. They didn't want me getting out there and showing everybody else in the league what I could do. So your question about a promise is, I don't know why you would promise anyone that you were going to take them when you don't know what's going to happen in the draft. I have no idea because I've never been in that type of situation.
What do you think, KOC? Why do teams do this?
Want them to stop working out with teams. Just wanted them to shut it down so
Yep.
they increase their chances of getting that guy. I think it's as simple as that, really. And sometimes that can end up screwing you in certain situations where if a guy falls, you might have to break that promise and ruin that relationship and deal with all that comes from that. Or maybe like that's what ends up getting you that player instead of having them risk going for a workout for 2 or 3 or 4 teams that are ahead of your pick. And on the other side, like for the player and his agent and their team, it's a risk for them too, if draft position matters to them. But oftentimes, I mean, like with Pokusevski, it's been OKC for him for so long. And like, you know, you might say he's going to be a bust, but for his team, it was about the best fit. And the best fit was OKC. So there's no use in having him go work out for Sacramento at number 12 or New Orleans at number 13 because they didn't want him to go there. They wanted him to go to OKC.
I think he's
for the
going to make their
relationships and
G League
development.
team unbelievable.
I look forward to watching
next
him
5 years of
Oh,
G
yeah.
League with that dude. He's going to be lighting it up. I mean, he might honestly be like the LeBron of the G League, but he could play 15 years. Could he get 30,000 points? I don't know. How many games a year do they play in the G League?
If the Celtics drafted Pokusevski, you'd be talking
No,
yourself into a
no.
7-footer.
I
who can
already
shoot,
told you.
who can pass.
He's 7 foot, 180 pounds. Remember we did this with Raja. It was
He
like, hey,
actually
Raja,
doesn't dunk. By the way,
Here's
he's
his- yeah.
7'1". He drives. He doesn't dunk. I saw one dunk in like hours of footage of him.
Remember
I'm
we
telling
gave
you.
I'm out.
we gave Raja his
come
physique. He was
on.
7'1", 185. Raja's like, I'm out. That's all I need to know.
Hey,
And he
speaking
can't dunk.
of
can't dunk, I'm out.
measurables, Israeli point guard Yam Madar goes to the Celtics, listed right now at 6'2", 0 pounds. So we need to update this profile.
0 pounds. Wow. Needs to put on some weight.
It does say in the scouting report needs to fill out frame.
Mm.
And we got Nico Mannion to Golden State as well. I mean,
Done. Clay, who cares? Now it's we're good.
He steps right in for Clay. Any other shockers before we go? Or anything that jumped out? Any surprises?
How about
Rubio,
maybe Jemias Ramsey, the Texas Tech kid, who he's wild. There's a lot going on there, but he had a pretty big high school profile. Was part of the high school circuit. Him going in the middle of the second though, you know, maybe that's on the later end for him. I'd say most of this kind of went chalk, except for a couple surprises. But I feel like the top of the second has been a little different.
a little livelier.
Yeah.
Well, how
there were
about
just
we
a
didn't
few
talk
more
about
surprises.
RJ Hampton going to Denver, like the classic. Put that dude in a trade where what is it? You know, he was like a top 5 high school guy a year ago. Goes overseas, drops probably too far. And now if they want to get that third dude and do the Porter Hampton, now that's your Bradley Beal package or somebody like that, potentially, if he shows any signs of promise at all. KOC seems dubious.
I mean, you'd hope so. I mean, he's got a long way to go. And
I like
I'm not
that
sure-
team for him, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I'm not
I
sure.
love the team fit though, because now he doesn't have to worry about anything. He's got 2 decision makers, 2 guys, everything's he's focused on, and he won't even be close to the third option. But I think running around with a second unit with those guys, I actually think it's a good spot.
I
The
think
other
so
thing-
too. He can slide into that former Malik Beasley role in a way, you know, coming off that bench.
The other thing I loved was Rubio going back to Minnesota, and then this stuff comes. Rubio is really excited to go back, and it's like Kevin McHale going back to the Celtics. Rubio's so excited to go back to the team where he missed the playoffs every year for 8 years. I'm back, baby.
Isaiah Joe, Sixers.
Wow. They get him.
So
originally
you're right. So
promised
that's
at
a smart
21.
team. That's a smart team, right? So you're vindicated there.
Can we double check on that KOC? Because I'd hate to find out later on that
They traded it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Safe right now.
I wish, like, I hate, like, I'm on NBA.com's draft board. Like, they got old logos on there. Picks have been traded. Like, just change the pick. We don't need to wait for it to be official.
Talk to Silver, Bill.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm already on the record that the first round, the first night should be the first 14 picks. That's it. And we go 15 minutes between picks, and then we can really nerd it up and get in all the trade stuff and do the whole thing and make it a whole night versus like how fast it flies now. And then half the time, you know, guys are crying and we're watching Anthony Edwards as Ant-Man with Marvel comic strips. And it's like, can we just talk about basketball?
That would suck. If I were a guy and they're like, hey, we're going to do this Marvel thing. We're like, yeah, we're going to do like this whole thing. Marvel's hot right now. Cool. Yeah, we're going to do like, you're going to be a superhero. Which one? Thor? Hulk?
Ant-Man. Well, he said he's been Ant-Man since age 3.
Yeah, I know. I get it, Anthony. I'm not an idiot, but I would be like, hey, if you guys are going to call me into the superheroes, can I not be the insect played by Paul Rudd?
Raja, what are your feelings about D'Lo, Cat, and Ant-Man as your top 3 with Ricky Rubio coming home to lead them to the promised land?
Yeah, I'm not thrilled. I think
enthused?
I'm not super enthused. No, I think it was a good fit. I think the pick was a good pick. For me, they're like any other team with a bunch of young talent, man. You have to find somebody to kind of help steward them into that next phase of their career. Someone's got to be there that is the pro, that is the character guy, that's been on winning teams, and still has enough cachet and is playing minutes where those guys will respect him and listen to him. Maybe a little less heavy-handed than a Jimmy Butler, but certainly with a little bit of a swag and cachet where guys will understand and take some of the lessons that he's trying to impart on.
And Ricky Rubio is probably not that
Jimmy
guy.
Butler.
Ricky's not that guy. Ricky doesn't strike me. I mean, he's a great pro. I think, there are some lessons if you were really to sit around and watch Ricky Rubio probably prepare and get himself ready to play and stuff. I don't know that he's vocal enough necessarily to really be in there, like establishing culture. I think you need another guy.
I got to say, I thought the biggest missed opportunity of this whole draft, I just thought Minnesota should have taken Wiseman. And it's like, well, why would they have Towns? It's like, well, first of all, Towns is unhappy every year. The odds of him being in Minnesota 2 years from now, what would you say, 50%, 40%? But I don't know. Towns and Wiseman together, I kind of would have wanted to see it. It's pretty unusual, right? If you could have figured out a way to play those two together, and both of them,
you could have done it.
Yeah, both of them can float in and out. And then on defense, there's ways you could have made that work. And I think that could have been a team that potentially, when you were playing them, you're like, oh God, we got to play these guys. They're long, they're athletic, they have bigs who can shoot threes. This is a weird team. I don't want to play them. And instead, they didn't want any part of it. Why not, KOC?
Offensively, that could have worked great. And I'm super intrigued by, I was super intrigued by the idea of it, because you could have Wiseman maybe as more of your interior big, your rim runner, and maybe he develops over time to be more perimeter oriented. And Cat plays like a wing. I mean, he shoots threes like one of the best shooters in the league, despite how big he is. I'm not sure how well it would have worked defensively, though. One of those guys would really need to be good on the perimeter, or you're going to get attacked. Teams are going to penetrate the paint against you, get kick out threes. I'm not sure it would have worked there for many years, and you would need it to work before it gets to that point where Cat's like, maybe I want to go somewhere else. D'Lo's like, maybe I want to go somewhere else. So Edwards, from like a character standpoint and like chemistry standpoint, it's not the best fit for him to not have that guy that you guys are talking about as a leader for him and as an example. But from a basketball standpoint, it's the best choice that they could have made, of a bunch of flawed choices with his size. And you hope he's able to turn it on more and play with more effort, but it could work. But they do need that veteran presence. And I'm not sure who that guy is right now, but they're going to have to find him at some point for this to work.
I guarantee Golden State wanted them to take Edwards.
Guaranteed?
I think Golden State wanted Wiseman. And I think they were sitting there the whole time terrified that somebody's going to trade up and take Wiseman. And then they had to stare at Edwards or LaMelo trying to figure out who is kind of the least weird fit for them. And instead they have this guy who, worst case scenario, he'll be able to play 20 minutes a game for them next couple of years. Best case scenario is exactly the kind of guy they've needed for 10 years. So I don't know. I thought it worked out pretty well for them.
I selfishly wanted to see Melo play with D'Angelo Russell. Sorry, Minnesota. You didn't have to worry about it now.
All right, we can wrap it up. Raj, any Brooklyn Nets scoop for us?
I got no net scoop, and I talked to Steve earlier, and he gave me nothing. Nothing.
This is weird. This is a weird thing for your friendship where he just can't tell you things anymore.
I know. I was so pissed at him. I told him today I had a friend reach out who wanted to contact him about like helping him through his Brooklyn like move, and I was like, dude, I'm really fucking mad. You haven't been on my pod yet. Like, I'm really pissed. That
Seriously?
shit is he was like, yeah, dude, I'm equally as mad that you're not sitting in the office with me right now. I'm like, touche, you got it.
Oh, so it's like a stalemate.
Yeah.
Well, if Harden gets traded to Philly, then there will be no more weird trades, and then he can finally come on and just talk and talk to you and Logan and do it. So we should book that. All right.
Promote the pod, Roger, for people who can check it out with you and Logan Murdoch.
Yeah, real ones. NBA, Mondays, NBA Ringer Pod. Check us out, man. We chop it up. Logan's great at his job, and I'm hopefully getting better.
Yeah,
good podcast.
Great. Thanks to KOC. I mean, unbelievable. You can start to work on 2021.
Gonna be a great draft.
Gonna be a great draft, and you can hear Bill Simmons.
Well, KOC's got the big post draft show. For the nerds on Ringer NBA. What time? Thursday?
Yeah, we're recording Thursday morning with me, Jonathan Sharks, and Jay Kyle Mann, and that'll be out, I believe, sometime on Thursday. Yeah.
Going full nerd. We gave them specific instructions, like nerd it up. Don't think any reference is too crazy. So I'm excited.
It's gonna be a good time.
I have mine tomorrow too, at some point.
All right, thanks everybody. It was a long wait. Wasn't as dramatic as maybe we thought it could be, but still just great to watch a draft. So thanks again to everybody, and we'll be back on this podcast. This is a bonus episode here. We'll be back with a normal Friday podcast on the Russillo feed.
Bye, Ben.